Welcome to our geometry lesson, our first geometry lesson. There'll be two. Geometry is all about shapes. There are 9 screens, 9 slides that I'll be going through, and then you'll have some student work. All right, let's get started. Unlock the problem. The Castel del Monte in Apulia, Italy, was built more than 750 years ago. The fortress has one central building with 8 surrounding towers. Which polygon do you see repeated in the structure? How many sides, angles, and vertices does this polygon have? A polygon is a closed plane figure formed by 3 or more line segments that meet at points called vertices. It is named by the number of sides and angles it has. To identify the repeated polygon in the fortress, complete the tables below. All right, the tables are on the next page, but I want to take a minute and talk about the 3 vocabulary words that were in that text. I'm my best to draw 2 squares. A square is a polygon because it is a closed figure. Now what that means is if I drew this is not closed. It's open and it is not a complete shape. It's open right here. And it needs to be closed in order to be a polygon. So that's one rule of a polygon. The other thing are the vertices and the angles, okay? So when you're looking at a shape, first thing you need to do is identify the sides. So this one has 4 sides. Well, both of them do. And then it also has 4 angles and 4 vertices. Now, a vertice is simply where 2 lines meet. And we have vertices here, 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 and here. At those vertices, there are also angles, and angles are almost always shown by a curved line, except for when they are right angles. A right angle measures 90 degrees, and a right angle has a little box in the corner. Now, squares, rectangles, and some triangles have right angles, 90-degree angles in them. There are other shapes as well, and we'll get into that. So an angle is just the size of the corners, and the corner's specific name is called a vertice. So we're going to fill in the chart for each shape. All right, it's a double chart here. So we have 8 shapes, and I'll leave it blue. So let's start with the triangle. How many sides does it have? Well, it has 3. 1, 2, 3. And then how many angles does it have? It has 1, 2, 3. You can see that this one has a right angle. And then how many vertices does it have? It has 1, 2, 3. Remember, vertices are where 2 lines come together. Angles are at where 2 lines come together as well, but just the size of it, the measurement. All right, let's look at quadrilateral. How many sides does a quadrilateral have? It has 1, 2, 3, 4. How many angles does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many vertices does it have? It has 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you'll catch on to this, but let's look at a pentagon. Now this pentagon isn't equal on all sides, and that's okay, but how many sides does a pentagon have? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many angles does it have? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one actually has 2 right angles in it, which is pretty neat. And then how many vertices does it have? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, look at the hexagon now. How many sides does the hexagon have? Hexagon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 sides. How many angles does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And how many vertices does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, hopefully you're catching on to this. I'm not going to circle each one this time. If you have a question about any of them, feel free to ask. I am going to circle the vertices, but I'm not going to do all the other ones. So how many sides does a heptagon have? A heptagon has 7 sides. How many angles does it have? 7. And it has 7 vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Uh-oh, I'm missing one. Be careful with some of them. This one is not always easy to see, but it does have 7. It's a little bit of a sloppy 7. Whoops. All right, 7. There we go. How many sides does an octagon have? It has 8. How many angles does it have? It has 8. And how many vertices does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many sides does a nonagon have? It has 9. How many angles? You guessed it, 9. And how many vertices? You guessed it, 9. And a decagon has how many sides? 10. How many angles? 10. And how many vertices? 10. All right, now something I want to talk about before I leave this page is prefixes. So we have T, R, I. What does tri mean when you think of like tricycle or tripod? It means 3. Notice there were 3 for each of those. What about quad? Q-U-A-D. Quad equals 4. What about pent? P-E-N-T. Pent equals 5. And hex equals, hopefully you guessed it, 6. Now looking at the next part of the chart, hept, H-E-P-T, means 7. Oct, O-C-T, like octopus, octopath. Isn't that a video game? Oct means 8. Non means 9. It can also mean not, so you have to use your reasoning skills and think, okay, is it talking about numbers or is it talking about something else? And then dec, D-E-C, means 10. So if you see these prefixes in a word, you can, or these roots to a word really, you can make an educated guess about what it means, and it'll have one of those numbers related to it. All right, let's carry on. So going back to the fortress, the Castel del Monte, what shape do you see there? Well, I'm going to carefully take the red and I'm going to go around. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this has 8 sides. I'm going to put 8 down here, and I'm going to go back a slide, and I want to look here. It's an octagon. So I can fill it in. So the octagon is the repeated polygon in the Castle del Monte because it has 8 sides, 8 angles, and 8 vertices. Now, if you look closely at that, you can see that there are tiny octagons on the outside. There's one here, 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 and they are actually placed right at the vertices. The vertice is here, and that's where one of those towers is. Pretty neat, huh? All right, let's carry on. Regular polygons. When the line segments have the same length or when angles have the same measurement, they are congruent. If you look down at the regular polygon, each side is 4 centimeters long and each angle is 108 degrees. We would use a protractor to measure that, but we don't have an online protractor right now. But the fact that they are all the same, we can use a different word than using the same, and it's called congruent. It's just a fancy word for the same. Two polygons are congruent when they have the same size and the same shape. In a regular polygon, all sides are congruent and all angles are congruent. Now we have two five-sided figures. If I go back to that chart, a five-sided figure is a pentagon. So I can see that both of those are pentagons. However, they do not look the same, so they are not congruent. Let's look at some facts about a regular polygon. All sides are congruent and all angles are congruent. What does congruent mean? It means the same. You can write measurements to show congruent sides and angles. But then an irregular polygon, that means not regular, not a regular polygon, not all the sides are congruent and not all the angles are congruent. You can use the same markings to show the ones that are congruent though. So what that means, let me switch over to yellow so I can go over this, is that this line here and this line here, they're the same. So they used two hash marks on the line. This angle and this angle are the same, so they use two curved angles to show us that they are the same. Now, the bottom line, I'm going to do it in green. That one does not have a congruent line to it, so that's why there's no mark on there. But on the other hand, we have this angle, and those are the same. They are congruent, as well as this one and this one. But they're not congruent to the other ones, so they have to look a little bit different. So that's what those symbols mean. Don't let them get you too confused. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right, let's look at this now. Name the polygon, then use the markings on the figure to tell whether it is a regular polygon or not a regular polygon. Name the polygon. Well, what shape is that? Hopefully that will be pretty easy for you. It is a triangle. T-R-I-A-N-G-E. Nope, not angel. Angle. Whoops. G-L-E. L-E. All right, it's a triangle. Are all the sides and all the angles congruent? Now, you don't have to have a protractor for this because they've already shown you by the marks. Each corner has one single arc in it, or that curved line. So that means they are all the same. So the answer is yes. And each side has one hash mark through it, which means they are all the same. So does this fit the requirements of a regular polygon? And the answer is yes. It is regular because each side is the same and each angle is the same. All right, let's carry on to the next one. I'm going to switch to blue. Name each polygon, then tell whether it is a regular or not regular polygon. Well, let's start with number 2. How many sides does it have? Go ahead and count them. Hopefully you got 6. A 6-sided figure, if I go all the way back to here, 6-sided is called a hexagon. So I'm going to go back to my original sheet or slide, and it's a hexagon. H-E-X-A-G-O-N. And is it regular or irregular? Take your best guess. It's regular because each angle has one curved line in it, meaning that all 6 of them are the same. And each side has one hash mark in them, meaning each of those are the same. So I'm going to put an R for regular. If you want to put an R for regular on your homework section of this, I am fine with that. Now, what about number 3? Number 3 is a quadrilateral. Now, you might have said rectangle, and that's fine. A rectangle is a quadrilateral, but we didn't go into specific quadrilaterals. So I would say quadrilateral is fine. Q-U-A-D-R-I-L-A-T-E-R-A-L. Lateral. It's a long one. And I want you to look closely. Is this a regular or not regular polygon? Now, each corner has a little square in it. That tells us that each corner it has 90-degree angles. Now, those are all congruent. They're all the same. But if you look carefully at the sides, the top and the bottom have a single hash mark, meaning that they're the same. But the left and right side both have two hash marks, meaning they are the same, but not the same as the top and bottom. So this is not regular. I'm fine if you put NR on your homework for not regular. And then number 4, how many sides does number 4 have? Hopefully you said 8. And an 8-sided figure we were talking about earlier is an octagon. OCTAGON. And is this one regular? It is regular because each angle has one curved line in it and each side has one hash mark in it. So it is regular. And again, I'm fine if you put R on there. All right, let's take a look now at some types of triangles. There are 6 types of triangles that I want you to remember. And I'm going to be putting some notes over in that blank space, so make sure you pay attention to that. If you look closely at Epcot Center's Spaceship Earth building in Orlando, Florida, you may see a pattern of triangles. The triangles outlined in the pattern at the right has 3 congruent sides and 3 acute angles. What type of triangle is outlined? You can see it. It's right in there. It's outlined in blue. It says, complete the sentence that describes each type of triangle. So we're going to use the triangles that are given to us. So let's just start right at the first one, and I'm going to switch back to black. All right, an equilateral triangle. Equilateral, what do you think that means, equilateral? It sounds like equal. It means that everything needs to be equal, right? The angles need to be equal and the sides need to be equal. So an equilateral triangle has to have how many congruent sides? It has to have 3. Well, all triangles have to have 3 sides, but they have to be congruent for an equilateral triangle. Now, the next type of triangle is called an isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle has blank congruent sides. Look on the triangle that's there and tell me how many of the sides are the same. Well, we have 2 inches, 3 inches, and 3 inches. So 2 of them are the same. This one and this one. Okay. Now, the next one is called a scalene triangle. A scalene triangle has how many congruent sides? How many do you see there? None. One is 5 inches, one is 3 inches, and one is 4 inches. So it's 0 congruent sides. Now let's look at the next one. We have a right triangle. A right triangle has one 90-degree angle, or what kind of angle is that called? It's actually right there. It's called a right angle. The next one is called an acute. Now, don't forget, a right angle is a wall and a floor, or a ceiling and a wall. That corner that it comes to, you wouldn't want your floor to be pointed down, and you wouldn't want your floor to be pointed up. You certainly wouldn't want your roof to be pointed down. And some roofs are pointed up. They're called gables, but in most cases, you want your roof to be straight across so that water doesn't collect and so that people don't hit their heads. All right, so I'm going to erase just those part. So a right angle we have there is 90 degrees. If it's more than 90 degrees, it's not a right angle. If it's less than 90 degrees, it's not a right angle. So the next one says an acute angle has 3 blank angles. Has 3 what? What do you think? It's right in the name. 3 acute angles. Now, the smallest angle you'll ever see is 1 degree. The biggest acute angle you'll ever see is 89 degrees. If you see either of those, like we have in our example there, we have 30 degrees, 75 degrees, and 75 degrees. Those all fall within this range, which make it acute. I always like to say when I'm teaching about acute that, oh, they're so cute, because they're so tiny, right? That's what we would say about like babies or kittens or, small, cute things like those. All right, and then we have our last one, which is an obtuse angle has one blank angle. Well, it's right there in the name again, obtuse. An obtuse angle is anything that measures above 90 degrees. So we have 1 to 89 is an acute angle. We have 90 degrees is a right angle. And anything above 90 degrees, so 90 degrees would be the smallest obtuse angle you could have. And for flatline purposes, 180 would be the biggest you'll see. Now, when you get to middle school, you'll see bigger ones, and those have a different name, but they are all obtuse. And my pen is not working now. There we go, a little bit better, obtuse. So if you look down at the bottom, we're gonna go back to the triangle that is in the Epcot Center's Spaceship Earth building. The type of triangle outlined in the pattern can be classified by the length of its sides as an blank triangle. Which one do you think it is? Look carefully at it. And it's going to be one of the 6: equilateral, isosceles, scalene, right triangle, acute triangle, obtuse angle. Hopefully you said equilateral. And it's equilateral because all of the sides appear to be the same. Now, we had to kind of take our best guess because we don't have a protractor with us. But if you look at that, it's pretty hard not to mistake that for one of the other triangles. Okay? All right, let's carry on to the next page. Let's talk about this activity. Classify triangle ABC by the length of its sides and by the measure of its angles. Now, this triangle is called ABC because they've named the vertices. We have A, B, and C. So it's called triangle ABC. We don't have a centimeter ruler here, but I do have one with me, so I'm going to measure it for you, and then you can help me identify it, okay? So we have, it says measure the sides of the triangle using a centimeter ruler. Label each side with its length. Classify the triangle by its length of sides. So from A to B is 8 centimeters. From B to C is 5. And from C to A is 10. Okay. Now, the angles here are different too. I'll give you the angles again. I'm going to change to green. This angle, angle A, because it's at vertex A, is 35 degrees. Angle B, 35 degrees is an acute angle. Angle B is, hold on just a second. Is 120 degrees. And the last angle is 25 degrees. Okay, so now we have 3 different lengths and we have 3 different measurements for the angle. So if we come back to here, which one is it? It is a scalene triangle. Notice how each side is different and each angle is different. So we can come back here and we can write, it is a scalene. And is it a right, obtuse, or acute angle? Well, this angle right here, angle B, is at an obtuse angle, and you only have to have one obtuse angle in a triangle for it to be an obtuse triangle. Obtuse, T-U-S-E. Okay, so it's a scalene obtuse triangle. What type of triangle has three sides that are different lengths? That's called scalene. And what is the angle called that is greater than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees? That's called obtuse. Okay, all right, let's check out our last page here. Let's look at some quadrilaterals. All right, a seating chart for a baseball field has many four-sided figures or quadrilaterals. What type of quadrilaterals can you find in the seating chart? There are 5 special types of quadrilaterals. You can classify quadrilaterals by their properties such as parallel sides and perpendicular sides. Parallel lines are lines that are always the same distance apart. Perpendicular lines are lines that intersect to form 4 right angles. So let me draw that for you. I don't have a straight edge, but those are parallel lines, and these are perpendicular lines. So if you were looking at a square, let me change to green. This line and this line are perpendicular with each other. And then I'll change to blue. This line and this line are perpendicular with each other, but the green lines and the blue lines are perpendicular to each other. I think I may have said something, and I don't want to go back and re-record the whole thing. I'm going to restate that. The green lines are parallel to each other. The blue lines are parallel to each other, but the green lines and blue lines are perpendicular to each other. That means they cross to make this T shape, okay? Let's look at each section of that task there. It says, complete the sentence that describes the type of quadrilateral. So it says a general quadrilateral has 4 sides and 4 angles. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 angles on each part right there. Okay. So let's look at the bottom side. Or the one in the middle on the left. A parallelogram is a special trapezoid with opposite blanks that are blank and parallel. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the sides. Do you see that they're marked? The top and bottom have 1 hash mark, and the left and right have 2. So it's opposite sides. Let me switch back to black. S-I-D-E-S, that are blank and parallel. What do you notice about the top one, the top line to the bottom line? Are they the same? What about the left line to the right line? Are they the same? What word means the same? They are congruent. That's supposed to be an E right there. Oh, it does look like an E now. Good. All right, now let's look at a rhombus. A rhombus is a special parallelogram with blank congruent sides. How many congruent sides? Well, look at those hash marks. How many are on each one? Just 1, and there are 4 of them, so it's 4 congruent sides. But if you look at the angles are not congruent. So the top right and the bottom left, those 2 are congruent, but then the top left and the bottom right are obtuse. They're different. So they are congruent with each other, but they're not all congruent together. Okay. All right. So let's go to the top right now for a trapezoid. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with at least 1 pair of blank sides. All right, so none of the sides are the same length, so it's not about the length of the sides. Think back to what word I used here. This line and this line are what? They are parallel. I always remember what parallel means because there are two L's that are parallel to each other in the word parallel. That's how I always remember it. Now, if you look at the other two lines, I'll use yellow. Eventually, if we were to extend them, they would cross each other, so they are not parallel. All right, let's look at the next one, a rectangle. A rectangle is a special parallelogram with blank right angles and 4 pairs of blank sides. Well, this one's easy. How many right angles does it have? You should look in the corners and see if you can see the little squares. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is 4. I didn't mean yellow. That's all right, though. There are 4 right angles and 4 pairs of blank sides. Again, think about what I said this means. These are perpendicular. It's going to be hard for me to fit that. I tried. Perpendicular. So this line and this line are perpendicular. This line and this line are perpendicular. This line and this line are perpendicular, and this line and this line are perpendicular. So that's 4. Put them all together and you end up with a rectangle. Pretty sloppy one, but a rectangle. All right, and then we have a square on the bottom. A square is a special parallelogram with blank congruent sides and blank right angles. Well, how many congruent sides does it have? It has 4. And how many right angles does it have? It has 4. So the types of quadrilaterals you can find in the seating chart in the field are, well, it's all of them. You can find a parallelogram. Let's find a parallelogram. Parallelogram is they're all parallelograms, right? So a rhombus, there are rhombuses here, right there. I guess that's a trapezoid, right? So that's not a rhombus. Here's one, number 133. A rectangle would be here, 122. And then a square, I don't see any squares in the seating chart necessarily, but there's a square right in the middle on the baseball diamond. So use that information to try the student work. I did put a kind of cheat sheet for you before each student work. There are 6 pages on the student work, but there are only 3 pages that you need to do. The other pages are cheat sheets for you. So good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me.